here today to talk to you about Clarendelle. Clarendelle is a brand that was created only 5 years ago by Prince Robert de Luxembourg. Prince Robert de Luxembourg is the owner and CEO of Château-Brion and Château La Mission-Brion.
Thank you very much.
He used to live abroad, so he actually studied in UK for several years. He also lived in California, actually. He was a scenarist for Hollywood. And most of the time, you know, he was invited to parties and wanted to bring a bottle of wine. He could probably bring a bottle of Aubryon every time he was attending a dinner, but thought it was probably a little too strict. So he actually tried to grab some bottles from other regions that were coming from many areas. He managed to find great wines from any regions in the world: Argentina, Chile, South Africa, most regions in the world, but were just unable to find a premium branded wine from Bordeaux. There's something missing there. I mean, if the Italian can make it, if the Australian can make it, why one of the oldest regions in the world cannot make premium brands? So he decided to create Clarendelle. So Clarendelle is a little particular because, you know, when you're owning a classified growth that is first growth, when you're owning, you know, La Mission-Brion, you don't really need to get involved in such projects that is very difficult. And the first thing he tried to think about is that how Bordeaux could be particular from other regions. And so that the market in Bordeaux, more or less, sorry for people who disagree with that, but has two markets. One would be on the branded wines that would be mostly on the fruity side. On the other side, you will have the classified growth. Classified growth are doing very well. I mean, you have they are very successful. The prices are going up. I mean, the difficulty with classified growth is that first, the prices are pretty high in terms of prices, and second thing, you don't exactly know when to drink them because they have this incredible aging ability. So you can wait for some wines 5 years, other one 10 years, other one 15 years. So that's part of the market. The other side of the market is the fruity wines that are lovely in Bordeaux, but the climate in Bordeaux is just not as regular as it could be in other regions in the world. So you can produce very nice fruity wines. Are those fruity wines better than in other regions? I cannot answer. I'm just saying that we don't think that's where we can get the best from Bordeaux. So we try to take the best of each, meaning that having wines coming from different regions in Bordeaux, blending them together, and age them for several years in order to get the complexity and the elegance to the wines. Because we consider that Bordeaux is specific when you leave it some time to it and you get more elegance. But the difficulty with that is that when you want to age your wines, you need to build a significant inventory. You know, our current vintage that we'll taste later on the red is 2005. So it means that we have 6 years inventory in our cellars in order to have this wine available today. So it's a huge investment, but we think that it's worth doing it to show what Bordeaux can do. Other aspects that we wanted to raise with a branded wine is that Bordeaux is famous for having great vintages, vintages that are average. There's no bad vintages in Bordeaux, as you understand, but okay, there's sometimes fluctuation from one vintage to the other. The decision was made actually to say, you know, Bordeaux is a large area. You always consider as a tiny spot in France and tiny spot in the wine, but actually you have the right bank, you have the left bank, and there's huge discrepancies between the right and the left bank. Sometimes you have as much differences between Merlot and Cabernet on the right bank that you could have on Merlot and Merlot on right and left bank. So you have a large possibilities, and by picking up the wines year on year on different areas, you can maintain the consistency of the wine at high quality. And we really wanted to create a brand where the consumer, when he's picking up a bottle, will always enjoy the wine and will be sure that the quality is consistent. So after this introduction, I will talk about the wines themselves. So as you're probably aware, Château-Brion and Château La Mission are both producing some white wines. The production is almost so tiny that very few people have the chance to drink them, more or less. But they produce, some white wines, Château Aubryon Blanc, and La Mission Aubryon Blanc, that was previously called La Ville Aubryon. It just that happens that we decided to make the wines with the winemakers from Château Aubryon and Mission Aubryon. So we asked them to help us to make the final blend. We asked for wines from several regions, and we make a pre-selection of them. When we selected something like 20 samples that we consider top quality and in line with the style we're looking for, we make a tasting session with Jean-Philippe Delmas and Jean-Philippe Masclet, and we select the final blend. The difficulty with them is that their palette is set with Sémillon. I mean, there's a dominant of Sémillon in Aubryon Blanc and La Ville Aubryon, so they love so much Sémillon that no matter what you do with those winemakers, they will put some Sémillon into it. So we have a dominant of Sémillon. And Sémillon is marvelous grape. It's just that it's not as shiny as Sauvignon Blanc, that on very early stage, I mean, it's bright, expressive, easy to drink, lovely, fresh. I mean, Sémillon needs time to give full expression. But it will carry the body of the wine. It will definitely ensure it an ability to age. So we think that having a balance with those two grape varieties would be very interesting. So I know that people will ask me the blend, so I will have cheating notes. Sorry for that, and I'm not very smart, so I don't remember everything. So there's almost 70% of Sémillon into this wine. There's 24 Sauvignon Blanc, and what is very, very interesting too is 8% Muscadelle. Muscadelle is not that known in terms of grape variety, but actually, if you bring it into a blend, it will be very interesting because you will add some flowers notes and will complexify the wine. The current vintage is 2009, so it means that we just age wine for 1 or 2 years. So the Sauvignon Blanc will carry on the freshness to the wines. Definitely, you have strong characters of Sauvignon Blanc on the nose. The Sémillon will take over with some roundness, kind of plenty fulliness of the wine. And what is important for us is that we want wines that are fully balanced. In other words, we don't want a wine that is smelling something and that you don't taste the same. I will taste. So. We believe that wines should be drunk with food. That's the way we enjoy them. So, actually, this wine can be drunk by itself as aperitif. I'm sure everybody will enjoy it. It's very fresh. The acidity comes from a Sauvignon Blanc. It's not overwhelming. We don't look for oaky wines that would be unbalanced. That would be just vanilla notes. I mean, there's a little oak into it. You have those marvelous flowers flavors within the wine, and everything is just blend together. At no moment you could say, okay, it just smells that flavor or that flavor. You really feel you really feel the complexity because it's opening up. There's no one note after the other. It's just coming all together as a whole. So we will wait for the time that all the wine will be fully balanced, both in terms of flavors and in terms of perception in the mouth. When you put it in your mouth, you have, yes, a nice acidity, not strong, so just refreshing your mouth. I think it will go pretty well with food. And you have a very, and that is very particular, very long mouth that is carried on thanks to the Sémillon. The long mouth, and you see that the flavors are remaining in your mouth for several seconds. That's, for a wine, for a branded wine, it's quite unusual to have this length of the wines. And we think it's important to have that's where we consider that the blend has been properly done. So this is Clarendelle White 2009. Elegance for us is a key word, meaning that we want people to have pleasure when they drink a bottle of wine. We don't want people, having a bottle of wine, You start drinking it, and after one glass, you don't want to have food, or you don't feeling like ending your bottle of wine. For us, it's about pleasure, and part of the pleasure is not to drink a lot. It's just that having enough pleasure for ending your bottle of wine. So when we're looking for our wines, definitely we look for this elegance and getting, the best reward you can get when people are enjoying it and drinking glass after glass and don't even pay attention and ending their bottle of wine and say, okay, I enjoyed it and I will probably go for another one. Okay, reasonably. The rosé is another story. So it's quite amazing to hear, but actually there was some. I don't know if I can call it like that, but there's some Aubryon rosé. So it's just that the families that own Chateau Aubryon always enjoyed rosé. So when they were making the wine for Aubryon, they were just making some rosé de saignée and taking some wine and drinking them for summertime and matching with food. So when Prince Robert, so it's Prince Robert de Luxembourg, created Clarendelle, it just said there was one brief on the rosé that, okay, do the rosé I like. Don't care about what the color is trendy. Don't care about the style people are looking for. No, it's very French in many ways there, but okay, that's the only wine that is not listening to the market. So let's say that's purely what we like. So what do we like with rosé? We like a rosé that has some roundness, that is a fully rosé. I think that people who are not experts, if they're drinking our rosé on a dark glass, could not even think it's a rosé. They could be mistaken and think it's a red. So it's definitely a strawberry, raspberry nose, a lot of fatness to the wine. We want a wine that is matching with the food you have during summertime. You will have a salad, you will have some barbecues. I mean, that's the kind of rosé that's matching with everything. What is extremely difficult to achieve with rosé is at the same time having some deep color and no amargous notes, no bitterness at all. And that's probably the hardest part we have when we are doing rosé, because having the color is easy, structure in terms of tannins quite easy, fatness becomes hard, and altogether with no bitter notes, that's becoming very difficult. So that's how we like rosé. Fruity, very expressive, fat. So the blend, because once again, someone might ask me, so it's 60% Cabernet Sauvignon, 40% Merlot. All rosé de saignée, because that's the only way you can have the structure and the color. So all are coming from rosé de saignée. And when I'm talking about this blend, there's not one tank going with another tank. No, there's probably 10 different tanks blended together to get this complexity. So it seems pretty easy and enjoyable when you drink it. When you make the wine, it's not that easy task. At the same time, you have a lovely freshness in the nose. Huh? It's not because it's fruity that you feel heavy. Exactly. There's some mint notes. Very true. Very true. Yeah. You probably see that the temperature is not particularly cool. Despite that, there's no default at all. So it means that the structure is big enough and there's no default, so it can support a temperature that's a little higher. I would recommend probably to taste it with 2 or 3 degrees below, lower. But you see that there's no problem at all to drink it this way. It's pretty good reward in terms of quality. Shall we taste the red? So the red. First, we'll start with the vintage. There's not much to say about the 2005. It was very well known in Bordeaux for being a classical, great Bordeaux, classical vintage. One of the few vintages of the century over the past decade. So there's many great Bordeaux, but 2005 almost had it all. It was very difficult for a winemaker not to do a proper job with 2005. There was a rightness, there was the acidity to the wine, but the difficulty was to have a wine that would give full expression early enough. And that's the main task of the 2005 vintage. I don't know if you tasted the 2005 vintages for the past months, but last year they were impossible to drink. 2005 were so close. I mean, you knew that the fruit was there, you knew that everything was into it, but you couldn't drink them. It was too early. 2005 is a vintage that is just opening up now for probably the past 8 months and starting to show how great potential it was. As I said, we try to play with the right bank and left bank because there's a lot of discrepancies. When you we produced Clarendelle in 2004, and 2004 was not a year that was particularly ripe. So actually the blend was dominated from wines from the right bank and mostly Merlot. Because you had more ripeness, since the Merlot is getting riper earlier, we had marvelous 2004 thanks to that. 2005 remains the dominant of Merlot, but most Merlot are coming from the left bank, which makes it very different because there's a huge difference between the right and left bank within the same grape variety. And it's quite astonishing when you blind test them to see the differences you could have. The interesting part of that is that every single year, yes, in Bordeaux, you can produce great wines. But what the market is looking for, and that's where I wanted to go, is that the consumer is nowadays looking for immediate pleasure. He's buying his bottle of wine in a shop. I mean, he's picking up the bottle. Within the next 48 hours, he will drink his bottle of wines. So if the wine is not really the same day or the day after, I mean, he will not have a lot of pleasure. When you are in a restaurant, I mean, sometimes you order a bottle of wine and say, oh, it's marvelous wine. It will be even better in 5 years' time. Yeah, good, but I mean, you're drinking it today. So that was the purpose of Clarendelle, to try to bring Bordeaux closer to the consumer because that's how they behave. And they want to have immediate pleasure. So the grape variety are 85 Merlot, 13 Cabernet Sauvignon, and 5 Cabernet Franc. The reason why I'm cheating notes just because for me the blend is less important to our definition. Once again, the process of making Clarendelle is that we source wines from different quality. Some are aged in barrels, some are not. Some are Merlot, some are Cabernet Franc, Sauvignon Blanc. We all take them together. We also have wines from the domain Clarence Dillon, meaning wine from Aubryon and Mission Aubryon that are also entering into the blend of these wines. So then we define the structure of the wine. So, okay, what will be the core wine making the structure of the wine? And then we play with 5, 10, 15, 20 different wines to get the maximum complexity and always keeping in mind that it will be drunk in 6, 7, 8 years and not in 15 years and surely not in 2 years either. And just at the end, we check where the wines are coming from and what is the blend, the final blend. So it's not a recipe we replicate, it's changing every year. So it's definitely a Bordeaux wine. There's no doubt about it. It's definitely a wine that has some bottles into it. Because the fruit is there. You see a wine that is a lovely structure, but there's already some roundness into it. It's not aggressive. You have no big tannins that are square like that, and you just feel that you never get into it. No, they're already round. They always have a marvelous elegance. The flavors are now evolving, to what you could find in some classified growth. Once again, it's not a classified growth, but we try to get the philosophy of classified growth and adapt it to the wine. The mouth is very strong. It's starting with some freshness again. You have a huge intensity in terms of tannins, because tannins are there. I mean, 2005 was a very powerful wine. At the same time, it doesn't lack fruits at all. I mean, it goes all together. At no moment, you feel there's a hole in the mouth. It's just going, wow, expanding, and then ending smoothly up to the end. Once again, a wine that's matching very well with food. I really strongly recommend with barbecues. I mean, that's definitely perfect. Yeah, there's a kind of bottle you're ending easily with two. There's no doubt about it either. I mean, and it still has a marvelous ability to age, meaning that usually when you have a branded wine that is 6 years old, you say, okay, there's a risk into it. No, there's no risk. I mean, yeah, definitely. It needs food to give food expression, but once again, it will play very well with the food, and keep it for 2 extra years. You know, if you don't drink it immediately, it will still be perfect. So that's probably the main difficulty for the winemakers, because when they make Chateau Briand and when they make La Mission Briand, they make wine for 15, 20 years minimum, more or less. That's how they make it. When they make this wine, it needs to give some nice expression earlier, meaning after 5, 6 years. And you see the result that is a lovely, complex wine. So it's definitely a very classic Bordeaux wine. So I don't know if it's an offense to some people, but for us, that's what we are looking for. So last wine is a sweet wine. More amazingly, it's actually a wine from Montbazillac. So a chateau in Bordeaux producing wines that are not from Bordeaux is quite amazing. But anyway, remember it was made in 2003. 2003 in France, you know, was extremely ripe. I mean, extremely dry. To some extent that sometimes you had difficulties to manage to get noble rot. So the first blend we made, you know, for our sweet wine was coming from several wines from Bordeaux, Sauternes, Loupiac, Cadillac, you name the Barsac whatsoever. And by blending them together, we felt it was lacking something. And actually, due to the lack of noble rot, you were lacking some acidity. And with a sweet wine, if you're lacking acidity, you're lacking elegance. And we say, okay, we prefer not to produce it than producing a wine that would not be fully proud of. So we saw, okay, what do we do? Or we skip 2003, what was a possibility, or we tried to do it from other regions. True story. So it's, sometimes you go back to your roots. You know, the nanny from the CEO was from Bergerac and was bringing a bottle of Montbazillac every year to the family. And say, okay, you know what? Let's try to see if we can manage to get the quality we're looking for in Montbazillac. What we did? So we went to Montbazillac, and we managed to have 2 kinds of grapes. Some had noble rot, and some had just, you know, passerillage, you know, getting very dry, but keeping the acidity. The interesting part of it is that by blending them together, we managed to have at the same time the balance, and same time a very nice acidity and lovely elegance. And so we have a wine that has some freshness, where you're not getting tired of, and you can drink. I mean, once again, you can end the bottle of sweet wines. So I was asked earlier when you should drink a sweet wine. So because actually there's not a lot of people answering that. If I'm seeing the statistic of consumption of sweet wines, for me the best moment is definitely as aperitif, when you drink it, you know, with goat liver, you know, goose liver, with this freshness, you know, with nice acidity. It's perfect match. You will end your bottle for sure. Everybody will love it, and will actually go for another round. If you want to have it for dessert, I mean, it works too, but you will probably go for fruit salads. We know mostly with some you know, bloody orange. Does it exist? Okay, that's the kind of flavor you really feel into the wine. You know, that will work very well. Pie, a pie with a butter pad, that would work also very well. But definitely, you need some citrus element into the dessert, and it could work. Once again, for me, I consider it as a risk. I much prefer it as aperitif, because your mouth is alive and just looking for, you know, new things. The ones have such wide complexity because the sugar supports the flavors for a very long time. So if you start your meal with that, I mean, you will just have an explosion, and you will really enjoy it with the food you have. If you have it for dessert, I'm sure nobody will complain. People will drink the bottle anyway.